Chapter 27 of Sisters. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This reading by Lucy Burgoyne. Sisters by Ada Cambridge. Chapter 27. Mary's house was a chill and meagre contrast to that of Rose, but there was nothing cold in Mary's welcome. To Deb's "darling, darling," and smothering embrace of furs, the slim woman responded with a grip and pressure that represented all her strength. Deb, although not the eldest, was the mother of the family, as well as the second mother of Bob. "Where is he?" were Mary's first words, and Deb smiled inwardly to see her as absurd in her mother's vanity and preoccupation as Rose herself. But this was a case of a widow's only son, and the visitor was thankful for such a beginning to the interview. "Where is he?" cried the anxious voice. "He was to have met you, and he never fails. This is not like him." "Oh," Deb struck in easily. "He was there all right, looking after his old aunt like a good boy. He wanted to bring me, but I told him he could be more useful looking after Rosalie and my things. I thought we'd rather be by ourselves, Molly, poor old girl. You know I never heard a word until he told me just now. Your letter did not reach me." They kissed again, in the passage of the little house. "You will send away the carriage, Debbie?" Mary urged, without visible emotion. "There are stables in the next street. You will take off your hat and stay with me a little?" "Indeed I will, dearest, if you will have me. Are you alone?" "Quite alone." "Where's the old lady?" "Oh, dead. Dead long ago." "And Ruby?" Mary looked confused. "Ruby? Ruby is, don't you know, an actress in London, doing very well. They tell me Miss Pearler Gold in the profession." "Gracious! Why, I've seen her burlesque tights. The minx! Well, she must be coining money, anyhow. I hope she doesn't forget to make some return for all the trouble she has been to you." "She forgets everything," said the stepmother, "and we are thankful for it. Bob hates the thought. It is hard on him, who is so different." "Don't allude to it before him, please. He feels it too keenly." "Debbie, what did you think of my boy?" "Oh, splendid," was the cordial response. "I could hardly believe my eyes." "Is he not?" the fond mother urged. "And it is not only his appearance, Debbie. They say he is the cleverest lawyer in Melbourne. He is so learned, so acute. He has a practice already that many a barrister, well known and twice his age, might envy." The pale woman, for her bricky colour had faded out, thrilled and glowed. "Yes, he told me," said Deb, "and it was good hearing indeed. But I always knew what he had in him." To herself she said, "Why, if he is so well off, does he let her live like this?" Poverty, though decent poverty, proclaimed itself in every detail of the mean terrace house, which stood in the most depressing street imaginable. It made the wealthy sister's heart ache. "And how are you yourself, Debbie?" Mary remembered to ask, as she shut the door upon the departing carriage. "You look well. How is Francie? We want you to tell us all about the grand doings. Bob is greatly interested in his Italian aunt. He thinks he would like to take a vacation trip to see her some day. By the way, did he tell you that Rose has another? Isn't she a perfect little rabbit? And quite delighted, Keziah says." As she talked in this detachment from her personal affairs, she led the way up bare stairs to her small bedroom. The resplendent woman behind her took note of the widow's excessive thinness. the greyness of her straight, tight hair, the rigid lines of a black stuff gown that had not a scrap of trimming on it, not even the lawn sleeve bands widows use, and though a Bennet Goldsworthy's old time annoyance when his wife was proved to have fallen behind the mode. And she has expatiated upon the charms of Rose's 11th baby. Deb's bright dark eyes roved about Mary's room, in which she recognised a few of the plainer furnishings of the nuptial chamber of the past, but not a trace of the person who had been so much amongst them once. His boots on the floor, his clothes on the door pegs, his razors and brushes on the toilet table were gone; so were a basin and ewer from the double washstand; so was the wide bed. In place of the latter a small one, originally Bob's, had been set up, at the head of which lay one large pillow fairly glistening with the shine of its fresh, although darned, linen sheath. Carpet and curtains, essential to the departed house father, had disappeared. The bare windows stood open to what fresh air there was. The floor, polished, and with one rug at the bedside, exhaled the sweet perfume of beeswax and turpentine. It was all so pathetic to the visitor, so eloquent of loss and change, that she exclaimed, catching her sister in her arms: "Oh, you poor thing! You poor, poor thing!" Mrs Goldsworthy returned the embrace tenderly, but not the emotional impulse. "You are so dear and kind," she said, in a gentle but quite steady voice. "I am so glad you came, so thankful to have you; but we won't talk about that, if you don't mind. I think it is best not to dwell on troubles, if you can help it. Tell me about yourself. I suppose you have had lunch? Well, then, we will have a nice cup of tea. Take off that heavy cloak. What lovely fur! And your hat too. What a smart affair! You always have such taste. No, I am not wearing crape. It is such rough, uncomfortable stuff, and so perishable, and the rule is not hard and fast nowadays, as it used to be. It would be stupid to make it so in climate like this. Do you want a comb, dear? How brown your hair keeps still! Then let us go downstairs to the fire." The fire was in a little bare parlour, as austerely appointed as the bedroom. A tea table was drawn up to the hearth, the kettle placed on the coals. There seemed no servant on the premises, but the neatness upstairs was repeated below. Everything was speckless, polished, smelling of its own purity. Well, it was a good thing poor Molly could interest herself in these matters, and her resolve not to brood over her troubles, if it was genuine, and not only a heroic pose, both noble and wise. So Deb reflected, and such was the calmness of the emotional atmosphere, the cheering effect of tea and rest and sisterly companionship, the discursiveness of the talk, that she soon found herself telling Mary the secret that she was so sure the widow would hear with special sympathy and understanding. "It is awfully selfish," she began, "to bother you with my affairs at such a time as this, but you've got to know it some time. The fact is, some folks will say there's no fool like an old fool, and perhaps you'll agree with them. But no, I don't think you will. Not you, for you know. The fact is, don't laugh, but I'm sure nobody can help it. I have been and gone and got married, Molly. There." And, after all, it seemed that she had not come to the right place for sympathy and understanding. Mary did not laugh, but she stared in a wooden manner that was even more hurtful to the feelings of the new wife. "Well?" she cried brusquely, after a painful pause. "Is there any just cause or impediment that you know of? You look